to LSCDS Speaks. This is a new initiative by LSCDS with the goal of enhancing professional growth for students and postdocs. My name is Maria, and I will be your host as we talk about all things professional development to help you make that next career move. But before I begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors, BioRender and MMPA, for making this episode possible. So we all know that grad school is tough, but figuring out what to do next is equally so. The LSCDS's Industry Team Case Study, or the ITCS program, is a 5-month opportunity to collaborate with industry advisors and tackle life science business and policy challenges. Today, we have 2 of those advisors with us. Lisa Cesario, who is a medical strategy director at Roche, and Adrian Turner, who is a senior manager of market access at AstraZeneca. We talk about the ITCS program, the importance of experiential exposure, and networking in making career transitions. And later, we have Peter Lin, a team co-lead of the ITCS program. Stay tuned for his tips on your application. Hi, Lisa and Adrian. It's really great to have you here today. I thought it would be great if we could start with some introductions.
I'm happy to go first. So my name is Adrian Turner. I'm currently a senior manager of market access strategy at AstraZeneca Canada. And really what that means is I'm working hard day in, day out to bring patients' medications in Canada through the access pathways we have. So this entails working with 2 of our health technology assessment agencies in Canada, CADIF and INES, as well as the provinces across this country to ensure that they have our medications on their formularies. Really, my job also entails the kind of intersection between science and business, where I get to really dig into the molecule and the patient population and the disease area to really understand where the value is of the product and the unmet needs it addresses. But I also get to spend time on the business side to understand how this medication will impact our business and how we can deliver it to patients in a fair and equitable way. So that's a little bit about me and my role.
Thank you, Adrian. It was really interesting to hear about your role in market access. Lisa, would you like to tell us more about your role as well?
Sure. Thanks, Maria. So I'm Lisa Cesario, and I am currently medical strategy director. Also, in our company, we refer to it as a chapter lead role, because we are working in an agile ways of working. And I lead a team, medical advisors, is probably what you most commonly are aware of in the industry, of about 35 to 40 people. And really it's across the entire portfolio. So really for us, we could be contributing to work right from early phase research in some cases, right to sort of, we say, end of life cycle. But we probably spend the bulk of our time in what we call that once pivotal data reads out for a molecule in development, to probably that, as you're continuing to generate evidence in the post-marketing setting, post-approval, is where we probably predominantly spend most of our time. And and then within that, in terms of my accountability, so again, it's really around making sure they have the environment, the capabilities that we need in terms of the work that they're performing, the environment for them to learn and grow, and also too in terms of their own professional development and career development. So I spend quite a bit of time, I would say, more so on coaching, mentoring from that lens. And then on the organizational side, I do spend time with cross-functionally with other leaders in terms of some of the either operational aspects of how we run the business, but also some of the strategic perspectives in terms of organizational design, other areas that they would need sort of to lead on the leadership capabilities. It's a little bit of a snapshot in terms of my job and my current role.
Oh, that was great. So you gave us both a very great snapshot, and it was both very broad perspectives on what your roles are. And they sound to me very similar, but they're clearly 2 different levers. And I was wondering because they're so different, I was wondering what your transition was like from academia to industry, and whether it was similar or different.
Maybe I could start on that one. So for me, I'm personally, I'm a pharmacist by training. So I was working in predominantly in the hospital sector at a teaching hospital in Toronto. So I was working in oncology probably early on in my career. I always had a passion, for some reason, an interest in the industry. There was always something there that sparked my curiosity. And for me, from a transition perspective, it was really a time where at that time, it was the company I'm currently with that was really starting to get into oncology. They had a number of compounds in development and some getting into approval. And that was sort of where some other colleagues reached out to me and really said, you know, do you have an interest? Do you want to explore this? And that's really then what I put my name forward in terms of what I joined. I wasn't sure if I would stay, but I've really enjoyed it. And I've been in the industry now for over 20 years and really enjoyed it right from coming in. So for me, I would say the transition was a little bit scary and exciting because I'll be honest, I left a full-time job and went in on contract too. And a lot of people said I was crazy to do that. But I felt, what's the worst that can happen? I have to find a job in a year. Let's see where it goes. And honestly, I loved it right from day one and haven't looked back.
That's great. It sounds like you really got to leverage your network and you found something that was potentially promising, and part-time, it's kind of like an opportunity to try something similar to, like, I don't know, just getting just experience, similar to experience getting. So I'm glad you found something that you were able to develop a career out of that's fulfilling.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. Maybe I'll just add the network piece being really important, because I did connect with, actually, I built really good relationships with a number of the industry colleagues that I was working with on the clinical side. And they really helped me sort of understand different opportunities, different roles, maybe things I could apply into. And that, I think, was also a part in terms of that journey for me, was really meeting with different industry representatives in different parts of the organizations that I was connecting in with. And then they sort of helped me find potential opportunities too.
That's super interesting. Adrian, were you also able to leverage your network to get to your current position, or were you able to find different internships or other programs to help facilitate?
I wish I had understood at the time how important that network is, and I now have come to the realization that that is a very important part of our industry, and building connections probably with any industry is important in order to find that job that really truly is fulfilling, like Lisa's talking about. For me, it was really when I was a master's student at U of T, I did not know what I wanted to do after, and fell into kind of a health economics class. And that's really where I got my start of learning about health economics, learning about market access, learning about how the decisions that our payers are making here in Canada are influenced by the economics, but also the science. And that really interests me and led me down the road of starting an internship and starting a role in consulting, boutique consulting, where I was working in market access. But on day one, it was very scary and very challenging from the beginning, because I had very little knowledge of the industry or of the area that I was joining. But really, what was helpful for me and probably helpful for when I was hired is that I really just showed that willing to learn and really dig in. And I think that's a really key piece that probably a lot of master's and PhD students learn from their degrees, is you have to have that willingness to learn in order to be successful in your current program. And that's really going to help you be successful as you enter the workforce as well. Being able to network with other people and learn about their roles, but also learning in your current role and learning as quickly as you can, as much as you can, and just being open to those different opportunities, which leads you down, happened to lead me down the market access and health economics pathway, but could easily lead you down medical or regulatory or very different pathways. So just being open to those experiences, I think, will get you really, really far.
Yeah, I think you and Lisa both commented on how taking opportunities that maybe you're uncomfortable with, but really investing in them can help you figure out what path you really want to take. And that really brings us to the topic of this episode, which is about the ITCS project. And I was wondering if you could both comment on it a little bit and also talk about how you've or what your opinion is of it in helping students transition from academia to industry.
So I've been fortunate to be part of the program for several years now as an advisor, and really what I've seen is it's that piece that I was just talking about, that willingness to learn and diving into the program. You will really get a lot out of it and get a lot of those skills that will transition and translate into the day-to-day of what we do in our roles in industry. So I found that to be it does a good job of mimicking kind of those tasks or those pieces of work that we do that allows you to showcase that to an employer or to a potential employer. So I found that to be a really rewarding experience for a lot of the trainees. Selfishly, or maybe not selfishly, it's also just really great to see how many people within the program have actually transitioned into the industry and have been successful because of the program. I take joy in seeing these people succeed that I've had the opportunity to work with throughout the program. So for me, that's something that I think is really great about the program as well.
More to that, I was wondering what your experience was like personally in the program as well as an advisor.
Yeah, so it's a great opportunity for me to also develop skills as well, right? As I move up within my roles and within my company, it's great kind of coaching experience and learning how to help trainees build those skills. And it's also a great experience to really break down the basics of what market access and health economics is really about, because listeners may be surprised, but there are people within my company that still don't have a great grasp on market access and health economics. So the ability to break down those concepts and explain them to trainees is really actually helpful in my day-to-day when I'm maybe meeting with someone who doesn't have a good grasp on how that environment works and how that pathway works. So it does help me in my job as well. So I've been able to take away some skills from the program by being an advisor.
That's so interesting. That's something I think as a trainee, I would not have thought of. That part, like, I understand one of the reasons you might be interested is to improve your ability to guide students, but actually your passion, like allowing your passion for the field to come through and making it better for you to work in is something I think that's really helpful, I think. And I was wondering, Lisa, do you feel the same way about your engagement with the project as well?
Yeah, I would say, Adrian, you touched on a number of things, I think, that sort of pull us into programs like this. Yeah, personally, for me, it's been really rewarding to, connect in with, really the students that do enroll in this really are committed. They're really passionate about learning. And I've been honestly impressed each and every year with the caliber of the students coming through. And, they're put in an interesting environment too, because the other piece I see from them is that they're automatically put into a group with a bunch of individuals that they don't know. And they've got a task ahead of them in addition to all the other things that they're doing. And I think to that point, it does sort of mimic an element, definitely in terms of our work environment, because we are very team-oriented, very matrix-oriented, very cross-functional. And sometimes you do have to jump into a project with people you don't really know very well, and you've got to deliver on something. And honestly, each group is really done really well in terms of how they've kind of approached that. I think the other piece, personally, for me, there's maybe another component. I mean, I really do enjoy seeing people grow and learn. And I'm also trying now, I think at this point where where can I also give some and share some experience, give some of that coaching, mentoring, kind of balancing also a bit of that realm too. Like you want to help them, share with them in terms of what you know, but you also don't want to tell them everything too. Like it's that art of discovery through the program too that I really love, and finding that balance of how much do you share and guide versus where you need to step back a little bit. And I think even as, in my current role as a leader, I have to play those hats a lot. I really need to sense in, when does my team need me to tell them what to do, and when do they need me to just listen, or help really just provide an environment where they're finding the solution themselves. And again, I think for me, it enables me to play a little bit more in that space too, where then back to Adrian's points, I'm also learning and growing as a result through that.
Yeah, that's true. I think leadership really is an art, and you kind of get better at it with more experience and with time. And it's good you can kind of reflect on that through these different programs as well. You both touched on this. It was about how the program, the ITCS program, relates to your current duties. And I think you both touched on how the soft skills learned through the program are related to what you currently do day to day. But I was wondering also, with the projects themselves, how relevant are they to what you do day to day, or what other people in your field might do day to day?
So I know on my teams, many of them in the past have developed a budget impact model, which is something that we do very frequently in our role. So it truly is something that they can take away and say, yes, this is something I know how to do. This is something I understand. I understand the requirements. And that's something that I think ultimately a hiring manager is looking for. If you have direct experience in being able to do some of these things, that's a really big win in the interview. I think the soft skills is also, you probably are able to develop those across any of the different areas of the program. However, speaking just for kind of the market access sector, I think there is a true takeaway that really does embody what we do day in and day out in our role.
I would agree that what I've seen in the projects is, people picking up, maybe a focus area of something within our work. And I've seen sort of a variety of different projects that touch into the medical affairs space in my case. And I've also seen where the students really try to also get them to tap in to where they have their interests, and then as a team, where can the project kind of align with that. So I think that's another component too, and really the space gives them a lot of runway to play with that. So I've seen where they're trying to build a bit of a what we consider sort of a bit of a MSL plan of action, we call it. And I've seen them actually try to kind of walk through the steps. I've also seen teams where, trying to build educational initiatives and not really having anything, I guess, baseline to work with in terms of understanding the regulations, what we mean by peer-to-peer, HCP to HCP education. It's a tricky space. So as they start to get into it, starting to expose them to some of those pieces. But I've seen a wide range of different projects, definitely very relevant. We'll give them definitely an open eye in terms of some of the things that we're touching in our roles.
From what I'm getting from both of you, it sounds like as with the students you've had, at least as they've participated in the program, they've really gotten a sense of what industry looks like with medical affairs or market access. How do you feel about that, and where do you find students benefit the most?
Maybe something I'm thinking about is I think as they go through it, they start to learn definitely pieces of our industry, to your point, that really aren't known. And I think that, again, that is that bit of that experiential exposure. My sense, many of them come in with, at least in the medical affairs stream. I don't know if Adrian, you see this, but they really get focused on the science. And it's also trying to get them, it's obviously an important part of our job and our role, but we're trying to give them an exposure to, the science is an enabler for us in one way, but how do we get them exposed to what I'd say some of the transferable competencies and skills that we're really looking for? Because I mean, on all of them, I would say they all have the science capability. So for my area, I don't worry about any of that. And coming into this program, if they can really focus on some competencies, that's going to really help them understand more of our industry versus the science itself. But it is interesting, they all come in and they're really gravitating quickly to that piece and trying to steer them a little bit to, focus on something that really is specific work that we do.
Adrian, do you feel the same way about market access as well?
Yeah, I think the focus on science is very clear from a lot of the trainees, which makes sense because that's what they know and comes from the work that they're doing day to day in the lab or as part of their program. I think to Lisa's point, it is trying to get them beyond that to really try and take in some of those other pieces that are going to be just as important in any type of role in industry. I think one thing that I've also seen that helps to make a trainee really successful and kind of goes back to one of the points we were talking about earlier is really just keeping that open mind and really wanting to take in as much as they can about this area, especially market access and health economics, where they may not have a large understanding of it coming into the program. So really just being open-minded and willing to research and learn and learn about this area of the industry that not many Canadians know about, that goes on behind the scenes in order to get patients access to medicine. So that kind of open mind attitude, I think, is really key to being successful in the program and successful in life, really.
Mm-hmm. I can completely agree with that. And I guess coming into the program, if you've noticed a lot of students focusing on science, do you find the questions they ask end up focusing on science, or are they more broader, more curious, or is that like something you actually have to guide them to be?
I've found the questions evolve over time. Definitely in the beginning, there is much more of, okay, is this piece about the science important? And it does evolve into, and that's such a great thing to see, right? Because then they do have a good understanding of what kind of questions they need to ask to really work their way through the project, right? Where they're really thinking about it. They're really understanding, okay, well, I know the patient population is this, but this is really the patient population that's important from an access perspective. So I think seeing that evolution of focused on the science, but then getting out of their comfort zone and really trying those concepts and asking those questions to go back to that kind of discovery piece is really great to see trainees latching onto, and the questions definitely do evolve over time. But you need to have those basic questions about the science to begin with to really allow them to delve deeper into kind of those other topics that they don't have as much experience with.
That's a great point. And I think to touch on what you were saying earlier, like being able to delve into these more like in-depth questions about a different industry requires passion, and you have to be interested in the topic, and that might be where like the interest in the science comes from, so they can, I think like you were saying, connect and then kind of try and solve this bigger problem. Yeah, that's really cool. Did you find that students focused more so on questions regarding the project, or were they more open to asking questions about your careers? And what, if so, like what were the best or most interesting questions you got?
It kind of shifts over time. When I think of when you're first connecting with them, obviously it makes sense. We're all trying to kind of understand a little bit about our background and who we are. We try to spend a bit of time, I'd say, even with the group, to try and also understand what they're trying to get out of this. Maybe what are some of the things they're trying to learn during it, so then they can also make sure they consider that within their, I guess, whatever project they start to take on. And then I think where the science helps is that where they can sort of then agree on maybe an area of focus or interest that they have collectively, then the science is the piece where now they're bringing the project to life through the activity. So if I think about if they're trying to, in my area, they're trying to understand some of the world of an MSL, for example. Yes, it's very a science-based area, but they'll pick a specific activity that an MSL will do and use that. Usually they'll pick a product to work through it. And then they get into some of the nuances around, which I think for them is a bit of that aha, but that's kind of where each time you meet, like I would say they really come prepared with really good questions. And you can really see how they are over time. They're connecting dots, like they're putting things, they're starting to put pieces together, or they're kind of like, I'm not really sure what's happening here. And the time points are good because then you really are able to help them address some of those questions to keep them moving forward. So I don't feel like there's one like kind of category of questions. It really is quite a range.
Did you find they asked questions about your personal experience, and did you find any of those very interesting?
I found the kind of personal experience question come later in the program, at least in my experience, where now they have a better understanding of what it maybe means to be in market access. And for some, it has definitely sparked an interest where this is something they could see themselves doing in the future. So I definitely saw more of those. Okay, well, I've done this program. What's kind of the next step from here? And unfortunately, I can only share my path, which is one path, and there are many paths to probably get to the same places where I am today. And I'm sure Lisa will probably say the same thing, that there's multiple ways to get there. So I can only share really how I've gotten here. But I think it's, again, being able to share that personal experience is really great with the trainees who have an interest, because they ultimately do end up finding their way and getting those experiences for themselves. It's a different path usually than mine, but that's great to see, and really great to see that they're succeeding.
That's really interesting. Like, that's good to hear too. I think oftentimes when people develop a relationship or try to go on informational interviews, you think that the person you're talking to, that is the path you need to follow. And I think it's a really good point you brought up. Like, there are multiple paths to get to the same career, and everybody needs to take their own and weigh their options. And like, I think the other thing you mentioned too, where they ask later on, I think it takes time to develop a relationship with somebody and feel comfortable asking those questions. And that's probably one of the great things about the program. They're forced to interact with you guys weekly, hopefully.
Exactly.
So it helps build that relationship. That's great. And it sounds, I know both of you have engaged with the program for several years, and it sounds like you've both had a very good experiences personally and with the students as well. Would you be able to share any success stories that come to mind? Success is how you define it as well. So
I think for me, I haven't had a team that hasn't been successful. And I think going back to what you're saying, Maria, like, success is going to be different for everyone, but everyone does seem to either get something from the program, helps them get their first job, helps them connect with somebody, helps them build their network. So, right, those are all things that I think really show that they have been successful from the program. So that's great to see. Is everyone going to get a job based on the project they did in the ITCS program? No, probably not. But I think it does help build those core competencies and builds your network, which really will help put you on the path, whatever path you go down.
I completely agree. I think every group I've been exposed to, I think they've all gotten something out of it. They've all learned through the project itself. I hope they've also, there's the network in terms of the career network, but even the colleagues they work with on the actual project, you hope that over time they also sort of stay connected with each other too, because, they really, must put in a lot more hours than even we see, in terms of our touch points. But I would agree. Every group I've seen, I think they've benefited from it. In terms of, now I've been in the program now for a few years. I've seen some people where, again, that path isn't necessarily one path, but a few people have taken roles in sort of, we'd say, companies or companies where it isn't necessarily our direct industry, but companies that we work with, to gain some experience, which is really nice to see too, where they sort of said, now I kind of see the connection of why you thought maybe to explore this. And we've actually just hired someone who did that, did the ITCS, kind of went into sort of a boutique agency environment. And they're about a month into actually on my current team right now. So it is actually really nice to see somebody who's kind of gone through your program, and just the way it's worked out, and they're now on my team.
Wow, that's so exciting. It really showcases the value of the network. And I think what you were both saying before, like the program, it's not just about, or rather, success is how you define it. People form networks, develop different skills and competencies, and just gain exposure to help them make decisions about where they see themselves going in the future, which is very valuable. For those that might be interested in staying in the fields where they've done their ITCS projects, I was wondering if you could share your 2 cents, and this is something I struggle with. So if somebody is interested in staying in either medical affairs or market access, how do you suggest they maintain a relationship with their ITCS advisor? What are your top tips on doing that?
I think for me, I'm a real person, so don't hesitate to ever reach out. We've had a connection in the past. It doesn't mean we need to be meeting for coffee every month or chatting via email regularly. I think the experience we've had together has formed a bond or formed a relationship, and there's many trainees I've had in the past who have reached out to me for either advice or just wanting to have a further chat about something they're thinking about, or maybe a role they saw they were interested in. So I'm always happy to entertain and chat with past trainees. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. That's maybe my 2 cents.
Thank you, Adrian. Lisa, do you have any advice for trainees?
Yeah, similar. I would also be very open to people reaching out. And to Adrian's point, it doesn't have to necessarily be on a regular cadence. It might be, you might be hitting a bit of a milestone, or you're not sure on a decision that you might be making and you want to sort of connect in. I guess the other tip I would say is, when you go through this program, we start to identify other people also that we can connect them in, again, expanding their network. So I think that's the other thing I would encourage, is that you're getting access to a group of advisors, but we have connections. And as we start to learn more about them and some of their interests, I have connected people to other people I know, either within the industry or other places, so that, again, they're starting to broaden their network too, and not necessarily, it doesn't have to be just reliant on them knowing me. So I think that's another thing too, is try to expand it even beyond your advisors.
I think that was a fantastic note. Basically, like, don't be worried about forming those connections, and you have developed a relationship with your advisor, and they can also extend your network by connecting you with somebody that might be more helpful for where you're trying to go. And so thank you both for sharing your perspectives about the ITCS program. And with that, I would like to also bring in Peter, who is a co-team lead for the ITCS program. Hi, Peter, how are you doing?
Hi, Maria. Thank you for the invitation. Pleasure to be here today.
Thank you for being here today as well, Peter. So Peter, you are currently a peer working to, well, you're working to develop the ITCS program, and you've also participated in the ITCS program. I was wondering if you could share your perspective on why other students should be interested in joining the program.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think the answer to that is actually quite simple. The program is designed for trainees who are interested in one, getting real world exposure on their business or policy challenge of their choosing, in an environment where you have a supportive mentorship relationship. And I can't really emphasize the importance of either of those two enough.
Thank you. And would you be able to fill us in a little bit on how the program works?
So as highlighted previously by Lisa and Adrian, we'll actually be breaking up the ITCS program this year into 4 sectors. So we already have representatives of medical affairs as well as market access, but we also have regulatory affairs as well as marketing and sales, and all 4 of which are very well representative of a typical structure, either in pharma or biotech. So in terms of how the case study works this year, it'll be a 5-month engagement. The application for the program will start in December, and it'll run through from January to May. Now, in terms of the structure itself, again, we've learned a little bit about it tonight. You are going to be in a group within one of those 4 sectors with roughly 3 other trainees, again, working together. So you're going to be working in a group where you don't necessarily know the people. You're going to be brainstorming together to conceptualize ideas that you guys are all interested in. But eventually, in some point in time, you're going to have to settle on a specific challenge to move forward with. And I think that's a really, really exciting and also challenging part of this program. Typically, that comes in about a month or 2 in. You're going to touch base with not only your advisor, but also a panel of advisors. And this is the point where you're going to get specialized feedback. Throughout this time, both Adria and Lisa, have kind of shared their experiences on the development of these trainees, and having a touch point at kind of like the early, middle, and late stages of the project can kind of track with their development. And that maybe an earlier meeting will be to focus or narrow down on specific ideas, or bring a bit focus on what types of analyses they should do, or something they should stay away from in terms of feasibility. Halfway through the program, you'll have a touch point there. And then later on near the end, around that point in time, you're going to be focused on translating all of your findings into a more formal deliverable. And that's actually also incredibly exciting as well.
Oh, wow. That was a very robust explanation. And for anyone, I think, that's interested in it, I know you're going to be hosting an info night soon. Am I correct?
That's right. Yeah. So we're going to be hosting an info night at the end of November, November the 30th. And we're excited to have anyone join who's interested in learning more about the ITCS program.
Amazing. So when are applications due?
Yeah, so applications are going to open up shortly right after the info night. Again, the info night is meant to share the structure of the ITCS program, as well as emphasize some of the different sectors we have and some success stories. So applications will open up in early December. So December 1st, it'll stay open for 2 weeks. And that period from December to January will be when we parse through all of the applications and start matching advisors and teams together.
And do you have any insider tips for anybody listening to this podcast right now?
Yeah, so this is actually quite interesting. Again, I heard this from both Lisa and Adrian tonight. One thing that might make your application stand out is just emphasizing your interest in learning. This program has been around for more than 3 years now, and everyone who's participated in the program is in by itself an exceptional trainee most of the time. So making yourself stand out by your willingness to learn, your willingness to take on new challenges, to step beyond your comfort zone. Again, like you guys mentioned early on, you focus on your science, right? A lot of the details you bring up is grounded in what you're familiar with, and breaking out of that comfort zone is what this program is all about. So I think that's particularly important.
Thanks, Peter. I'm sure after this episode, our listeners will be really excited to sign up. And it looks like we've covered everything for today. So before wrapping up, I'd like to thank Lisa and Adrian for both their commitment to the ITCS program and for sharing their experiences with us here today. Thank you both so much. For those of you interested in participating in the program, there's an info session on November 30th. Make sure you attend. LSCDS Speaks is a podcast brought to you by graduate students and postdocs interested in improving graduate professional development. In our next episode, we're going to be learning about common pitfalls in job interviews. Stay tuned for new episodes dropping on the last Monday of every month. See you soon.